My name's Jamie Taylor, and I'd like to begin by thanking Scott Gormley in Ohio for his suggestion to cover this material. Thanks, Scott, it's a great idea. The whole question of rhythm changes for me is rather analogous to the question of clearing out my basement, in the sense that it's one of those jobs that for a long time I knew I needed to address, and for a long time I didn't address. So if you're anything like me, this is probably a subject that you know in the back of your mind you want to look at, and perhaps haven't looked at as much as you'd like. And also, if we can extend the basement clearing analogy a little further, it's a job that can be quite frustrating, and I think the reason for that is that a lot of the material that exists tends to focus on all of the harmonic things that we can do with this progression. Now, if you've come here hoping to learn some of the harmonic substitutions and so on that we can apply to this piece, don't worry, I'm going to cover that, and I'm certainly going to show you some of the different ways that I think about these chords. But the reason why this class is called a two-speed approach is because, in my experience, we need to have a second way of thinking about this piece. On the one hand, rhythm changes is a blank canvas onto which we can superimpose a lot of very clever harmonic material, and certainly that's what a lot of the great players down the years have done. But at the centre of this piece is still a fairly simple diatonic progression, based of course on George Gershwin's song I Got Rhythm, and I think there's another way we can look at it. We can clear away the clutter and hopefully see the wood for the trees and really see the basic diatonic milestones of this progression, so that we can have an approach that is melodic, creative, spontaneous and thoughtful before we get locked into this cycle of playing lots and lots of very harmonically involved things. Now obviously the materials that we can use include the B-flat major scale, which I'm sure you're all familiar with. We can also think about a pentatonic sound, a major pentatonic on B-flat, which would sound like this. We can think about the blues scale on B-flat, which sounds like this. Obviously that's a minor sound, but that's okay, we can still use it. And then beyond that, we're really just thinking about chromaticism. We can use any of the 12 notes, really, if we can hear a strong phrase around them. And just language and vocabulary, ideas that we might have picked up from listening to jazz players. Just to give you some idea of some of the chromatic things that we might use, there's an area between the third and the fifth of the tonic chord, the third being D and the fifth F. That's often an area where chromaticism in either direction can be used. It sounds like Blue Monk. Or downwards. We can often find chromatic movement around there. Chromatic treatment of the third, bluesy sort of things. We can use that sort of sound. We can use the blues scale chromatic alteration, such as the flat and fifth. We have the flat and seventh available to us in that scale. All of these things might give us a phrase. If we combine the flat and seventh with the major seventh, we can get a sound. The last phrase of "things ain't what they used to be" uses that, doesn't it? So really there aren't any wrong notes as such. We can use any of the 12 notes if we can make a phrase. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. Some of these are so similar as to be almost interchangeable, and others you might need to tell your accompanists that you're going to use them because they may or may not be compatible with the original changes. But a lot of them will have at least some degree of compatibility with the original, and it's probably something to experiment with. So what I'm going to do is improvise for you, firstly just on the original 8-bar bridge, and then on the different examples that you have on the PDF. And I hope that you can see how this works, and you'll have some inspiration to try coming up with some lines of your own over these different bridge progressions. One final point I should make before we leave the bridge behind is that in all the examples that you heard there, I'd reprogrammed the backing so that the accompaniment was following the same changes that I was playing. Now that was necessary because the tempo was medium. Now it may be that medium tempo is the best tempo for you to work on at the moment, or possibly even a slow tempo if you're getting used to all of these ideas. But one point that I would just like to make is that obviously at faster tempos the question of compatibility becomes less and less of an issue.